On this channel, I've been talking a lot about truth. And in theory, I think people like the concept of truth. Like, yeah, I want to know the truth. Yeah. But if that's the case, then why aren't we all receiving God's love all the time? It's because we don't actually want the truth. Okay? Because again, our equation down here to receive God's love is humility, which is the desire to own and feel all of your own emotions, plus the Creator's view of truth, leaves us open to receive God's love, which is an emotional substance that is transferred from soul to soul, and then as a physical being we experience its effects. Okay? It's faster than the speed of light. It's more powerful than anything you can imagine. Okay? It is actually our life force, believe it or not. Okay? But if that's the case, why aren't we all receiving it? Well, it's because we are not living in truth from the Creator's perspective. Okay? Why is it so hard to get ourselves in truth? Why don't I want to feel it? Well, let's go through some reasons why we develop resistance to truth. Oftentimes, we associate violence with truth. When you're a child and you attempt to say truthful things, what happens? Oftentimes, your parents will yell at you or prevent you from expressing the truth because it will contradict their worldview. Or that they're not humble enough to recognize that the child lacking in intellect is actually the more loving being in the relationship. You know, I'll tell a quick story about this one. I know a woman who was getting ready to divorce her husband. Okay? And he did not know yet, but she was making accommodations for herself to leave. And she had leased a new apartment. Okay? And while she was spending time with her, at the time, husband and her young son, her young son says, "Mommy, I would like to go live in your new home." Now, of course, you can imagine, like, the reason why he's saying that is because this woman is suppressing her own emotions and not being truthful with her husband that she wants to leave. And as a result, the child absorbs that. Okay? Now, the child absorbs that. Do you think that he was applauded for that amazing feat? To be able to know things without actually being told? No. What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. This is your home. There's no new home. Okay? That's a forced compliance. Okay? She's actually projecting anger at the child because the child is not meeting her demands of lying to her husband. So then, what happens with this child? This child starts to doubt his own sense of knowing. And then if he attempts to tell the truth, emotionally he knows, well, telling the truth's not even worthwhile because if I tell the truth, I just get yelled at and belittled and made to feel like I'm insignificant and in error. Just from that one action, right? That's how sensitive the human soul is. How about won't get what we want Parents teach you to tell the truth, right? What if you tell the truth about what you want and then you don't get it? Yeah, I think I may have told this story before, but this is another one that's relevant, right? When I was a young child, and my parents had purchased land and built a house. So as we're getting ready to move in, I pick out the room I want. And there was a bunch of painters in the room. And I expressed to the painters, hey, like, could you paint my room blue? And they were like, well, yeah, I mean, we could, but we need your parents' permission, right? So, it comes up, the discussion with my mother, that's like, hey, I would really like my room to be blue. And, what I had in my mind was bright, vivid blue. And my mother said, okay. Never asked me about a shade or any of this or that, okay? We move into the house. I go up to my room. My room is not blue. It is gray with a tinge of blue in it. And very light at that. Honestly, like a pretty putrid color, I have to say. The truth is, I hated that color. Okay? But in that moment, okay, I felt intense emotional pressure to tell my mother that I liked that color. Because that's what I asked for, right? Now, I wanted bright, vivid blue, and she took my request and twisted it to fit her view of what she deemed acceptable. Now you might be saying, hey, it's her house. She can paint the house any color she wants. Yes, I agree. Okay? But say that. I don't want your room to be blue because it's my house and I don't like blue, and your room's going to be white. Okay? You buy your own house, you paint your walls blue. That would have been more loving because it would have been more truthful, okay? Now, in turn, instead, what happens is, okay, I am taught by a female that if I want something, no use telling the truth. Because guess what? I'm not going to get it anyway. So my mother is actually teaching me to lie in that circumstance. Okay? How about parents teach us to lie? To each other, right? Let's say like you're out with your dad, right? I mean, I've had this happen to me. Out with your dad. There's some kind of behavior that goes on. Don't tell your mother. Hey, it's between us. We're men, right? It's a man's secret. Okay. Not only in that moment are you teaching your son to lie, you're also teaching them that men are superior to women. And that women are weak because they can't handle the truth of whatever we're doing. How about same thing with the mothers, right? Don't tell your father this. Don't tell your father. He's just going to get upset. You're teaching your child to lie. Avoid punishment, right? Avoid projections of anger. Avoid violence by lying. How about codependent addictions with partners and friends? I won't tell you the truth about what you're doing if you don't tell me the truth about what I'm doing. We'll sit here, we'll hang out with each other, we'll gossip about other people. We both know it's not loving, but we're just not going to say that. We'll indulge in substances that we know is non-loving. That's okay. I'm not gonna say anything to you about it. You don't tell me that my behavior is non-loving. I don't tell you that your behavior is non-loving. It's codependent addiction. You start realizing, let's say you've got friends, okay? that you like to drink beer with. What happens when you receive the Creator's truth that you're actually slowly killing yourself when you're drinking alcohol? You're not going to want to do it anymore. Which means no more drinking with my buddy. Right? But then if you're really friends with him, you can sit there and drink pineapple juice and still have a great time, right? If you can't, then maybe you weren't really friends with that person in the first place. Or maybe you need to step away from that part of your relationship because that part of your relationship is no longer healthy for you. And then hopefully maybe your friend chooses to get on their own progression and meet you somewhere in the future. Because that happens too, you know? That happens too. The truth is necessary. Living in truth, telling the truth is necessary because truth builds the foundation for love. Remember, whose love? God's love. God will not meet our addiction to receive His love when we are not living in His truth. This is why the truth is so important. Because it's not just about humility. This one's hard enough, feeling our own emotions, okay? But accepting God's view is required to open us up to be receptive to receiving God's love. So truth is absolutely necessary. It's absolutely necessary. And, you know, when you start receiving God's love, human validation, waste of time. Waste of time. The other day, I was sun gazing at the beach, watching the sunrise, and I was dancing. Had my earbuds in. I was grooving on the beach. Okay? In front of everybody. A lot of people were there. I didn't care. Okay? Because I'm in my own passions and desires. Okay? Now, a nice lady walks over to me. She engages me in conversation. So I turn off my music. We start talking. She asks me if I'm a believer. I say, what do you mean? Believer in what? She says, believer in Jesus Christ. And I said, well, I know He was the Son of God. But I'm a son of God. And you're a daughter of God. And she was like, oh no, I mean that He died for our sins. And I said, I don't really think that makes a lot of sense. And she said, of course it does. And I said, well, my view is that if you believe that another person's actions change anything about your relationship with the Creator, it's actually an abdication of responsibility for taking control of your own life. And she was like, well, I don't see it that way. And I'm like, okay, that's fair, you know. I'm not forcing my views on you. I'm just telling you why I feel this is an erroneous belief, okay? Then I asked her, hey, let me ask you, do you have kids? And she said, I have 2 grown children. I said, great. Let's pretend they're small, okay? And one of your one child expresses themselves in a totally loving way all the time. They are living in their passions and desires. They are joyous and happy and loving. And then you have another child that's an absolute terror. Constantly using anger and attempting to manipulate others, using violence on the other child. Okay? If the loving child allowed herself to be killed by you, would that improve the quality of the soul of the other child? And as I said this analogy, the woman just didn't say anything else to me, and she just walked away. Resistance to truth. You know, to think like she thought, I'm going to go talk to this guy and he's going to validate my worldview. Or I'm going to convert him to my way of thinking. When in reality, she was confronted with the truth. And she did not want to feel her own emotions about it. Okay? And, you know, this is, to me, that's an example of like, that's fine, you know? That woman didn't project anger at me. That woman didn't say anything nasty to me. That woman didn't denigrate me in any way. But she didn't want to interact with me anymore. And when you're living in truth and expressing that truth, you know, all these people that are coming at you in error, they go away. They go away. It's pretty cool. So, in conclusion, okay, it's worth recognizing that we learn resistance to truth because of all this stuff. We associate violence with truth. That we won't get what we want if we tell the truth. That our parents, the stewards of our life, teach us to lie. And that we enjoy enacting with the codependent addictions with our friends and family. Okay? So, this is why we have resistance to truth. And if you want to experiment with feeling the truth, or telling the truth, that it starts with humility. Feeling your own emotions. Because when you're confronted with truth, that's when the emotions start coming out. Okay? And if you're humble, and you ask for God's help, it's not God take away my pain. It's God help me feel my own emotions. Help me, God, help me remove my resistance. God, I know I'm in resistance. I'm in resistance. Help me feel. Help me break down my resistance. Okay? God will help you do that. Because you're not in addiction. Because you recognize that you've got blocks up. Okay? If you admit to yourself, if you're doing this work, and you admit to yourself you're in resistance, God will help you. Okay. Love and peace, friends. Good luck.